Welcome again to the breakout sessions for the Pathways Initiative. My name is Glenn Best, and I'm the director of the Manufacturing and Supply Chain Management Industry Strategy sector. And I have as my co-facilitator today, Chris Immerholz. I may be messing up his name. Chris, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Glenn. Not as easy as your name. Yeah, Chris Emmiholtz. I am the Vice President of NJPTCO. I oversee our tax, budget, economic development, and workforce development policies. And within those areas, I staff the manufacturing caucus for NJPTCO. I previously worked in the state Senate where I staffed the manufacturing caucus there. So manufacturing has always been in my heart, and I always enjoy working on those issues. And when we talk to manufacturers, I'm sure Glenn can say the same thing. Yes, they complain about mandates and taxes and costs, but there's nothing that we hear more than workforce development when we talk to our manufacturing community. And I think similar to the supply chain community and all these industries today, workforce development is what sets New Jersey apart. And it's why we're excited to hear from you guys today.
Thank you, Chris, and well said. So to everyone, the individuals you're going to hear from today have a unique and diverse perspectives on the workforce needs of these specific industry sectors, manufacturing and supply chain management. And we're hopeful that their comments will inform and inspire further discussion and thinking as we continue with this initiative. We ask that you use the chat function liberally, offering your own perspective on the issues being discussed. We will be monitoring the chat, and as time allows, we will try to pose any questions in addition to the questions that we will be addressing to our panel. The breakout sessions are designed to really be the launch of our industry collaboratives. We will be meeting monthly, as Aaron mentioned, starting in February to build an education ecosystem to allow us to learn more about the industry trends, promising education and training strategies, and partnership possibilities to inform and develop statewide strategic education and workforce plans. So today's session will help us identify some of those issues and themes to explore in greater depth in the future collaborative meetings. So a few housekeeping rules. We ask that everyone, with the exception of our panel, remain muted. Type your questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them as time permits. We'll receive multiple warnings throughout our panel to let us know when our time is about to end. So this time I'd like to begin by introducing our panel to everyone. And I'd ask for each of our panel to introduce themselves and their role with their organization. So I'll start off with Gloria Brable.
Hi, Glenn. How are you? Hello, everyone. My name is Gloria Vrabel. As Glenn had mentioned, I've been with New Jersey Transit for a little over 20 years. Work in the talent acquisition area. I am the senior director of our outreach unit, which entails reaching out to colleges, nonprofit, military bases, other community organizations, and basically creating that relationship to have them assist us in creating those pipelines that we need in order to fill many positions that we currently have available. So thank you for inviting me, and I'll turn it over to you, Glenn.
Thank you, Gloria. Next, I'd like to ask Hilary McCarran to introduce herself.
Morning, Glenn. Thank you for having me be a part of this panel today. Good morning to all the participants. My name is Hilary McCarran. I'm the manager of port policy and planning at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And one of my key responsibilities is leading workforce development for the Port of New York and New Jersey.
Thank you, Hilary. Next, Roy Ridings.
Hi, all. And thank you, Glenn, for doing this with New Jersey Pathways. I am Roy Ridings. I am the apprentice and new tooling manager at Weissog Company in East Hanover, New Jersey. We are a manufacturer of precision connectors and overmolded parts for the automotive and the medical device industries.
Thank you, Roy. And our last panelist, Jim Minadeo. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's the Italian way of saying it. So it's great. Yeah, Jim from Zero Surge, manufacturer. We make these little guys behind me here, surge protectors, and been doing this with in a various form for about 5 years now, as far as getting involved with the workforce development. So one thing too, as a background, is that we've had an employee with Down syndrome that's worked for us for, I think he's in his 12th year now. So, you know, so we have success with that kind of workforce development as well.
Outstanding. Thank you, Jim. That's great to hear that. So just framing our conversation, our discussion is focused on how to address industry needs through rapidly responsive education solutions that will benefit students and working adults, and basically help the state to prosper in its economy, and that we come up with collective steps that we can all agree upon that will help us achieve the most skilled and innovative workforce. That being said, I'd like to pose the first question to the panel. What is your most critical workforce development need in this current environment as we emerge from COVID-19 pandemic? And I'll pose that question first to Gloria.
Thank you, Glenn, again. So with our industry, obviously New Jersey Transit being a transportation organization, the level of positions that we have available, the industry as a whole is over 11,000 employees, 70% being unionized individuals, and the rest are non-union or management sort of a management side. So on our unionized positions, I would say a majority of the skill sets that we seek are the individuals that probably struggle when it comes to our what we call the pre-employment tests to come and become individuals within the organizations. And those tests can be tests for our mechanics, for our electricians, for our laborers, HVAC, and whether it is the way the schools are teaching, and we're not teaching on our end in our training programs, I think there's some type of disconnect there. Where is math going? Because many of our exams are geared towards basic math, but basic math for us might be a little different with basic math in colleges and university. So I think that type of disconnect is existing during pre-pandemic, after pandemic. So the skill set of understanding the math, as well as we do have some individuals, it was mentioned earlier in the presentation, the use of electronics and not having that communication skills during the pre-employment testing. So skill sets like that, I feel are lacking in our industry.
Jim, same question to you. What has been your observation?
I would say that, you know, in the last couple of years, the issue is obviously, if you need to hire somebody when you're growing, does the current workforce trust that this new person is going to be safe, you know, because of the COVID stuff? But I think even beyond that, my issues have been, you know, we're an older manufacturer, been around 30 years. Our manufacturer, we don't have really high-tech manufacturing compared to some of the other panelists probably. And so for us, it's more of the older thought of, you know, you have something that you're physically making. So are you, do you have the mindset that, you know, if you break this, you know, we have to throw it out. It's not like a computer person that comes in, okay, you screw up a Word doc, you press Control Z, you go back to the same page, or you delete it and start over. But with manufacturing, it's this mindset that you can't just do it all over again. It costs money to do that. You can't have that mindset. So I think that is missing in today's you know, hires. And I don't know how you test that out. Like you mentioned, Gloria mentioned testing. Like, how do you test out that mentality? And I haven't found one that really does that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Hilary, you have a unique perspective because you actually service multiple types of employers who are based at one of our largest footprints in the country, the ports. What is your perspective on that question?
Thank you, Glenn. The Port of Newark in New Jersey, as you know, is the largest port on the East Coast, and it's the third largest port in the nation. And throughout the pandemic, cargo volumes have remained strong. What most people don't realize is that 80% of the cargo that's imported through the Port of New York and New Jersey stays within the region, and it's moved through interstate commerce or drayage truck drivers. So, while there's different types of career pathways within the port and near the port, one of the most critical needs is for interstate commerce, or what we call drayage truck drivers. And this is very different than long haul driving. It makes a fantastic career pathway that affords tremendous life balance, flexibility, and a lot of options for job growth. So you could work for a licensed motor carrier, and even if maybe you're moving, say, something like wine or spirits, you would be a union affiliated driver. And then as you gain experience, you can become a small business owner. And over 70% of the drivers at the Port of New York and New Jersey are small business owners. And so that involves a lot of skills, Glenn. Being a solid business owner, you need to have negotiation skills. You need to have the ability to manage a small fleet, maintenance skills. You need to understand regulations and so forth. So, so this is probably one of our most critical needs, is addressing this shortage.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Roy, you manage the apprenticeship program for Weissall. What do you see from this vantage point of both someone who is training, bringing in new talent into that space, and in light of this posing the same question, what is your perspective on that?
We have seen some of the same things that Hilary and Gloria have seen, which is that we sometimes find that candidates, especially in that 20-year-old range that have maybe been in some odd jobs and not right out of high school, are lacking in some of the basic math skills. Like, they can do some things, but I find I have to teach refreshers in basic trigonometry a lot of the time. And, I'm not talking about high-level calculus or anything, but just, simple functional trig to be able to work in a machine shop for tool and die makers, or on the production floor for precision manufacturing technicians. We currently use 2 tests for our candidates. One is an older Ramsey's basic skills assessment that, it's a pretty simple 40-minute test that goes through basic math, some reading, and we find results are sometimes all over the board. And, generally you don't take a candidate with low results, but we've found sometimes when we read through the lines, they're just somebody that doesn't take the test well. So, you always have to meter that with the hands-on experience in the interview with the candidate. The other thing we've just started using is a higher level test. I know one of the panelists, I think it was Jim made a statement about how do you test for the softer skills, how good a candidate is going to be at performing. And we've used a TTI management skills test from Teresi and Associates, and we've now started using that for all of our entry-level candidates, because what we found is we need to find candidates that have a propensity towards innovation much earlier than by the time we go through a 4-year training program for a tool and die maker. And that is a test that we believe is going to help us to determine soft skills, because it is a behavioral test that basically gives assessments on a point wheel for dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance, and then assesses how well that candidate is, that's his natural ability to be high in one area and low in another area, or is he adapting his style to the situations of the test? So we're trying to use those things. But again, a lot of what I'm finding is some of the math skills. One of the things we find with higher level candidates like engineering co-op students is the practical knowledge or experience of how to apply what they've learned in the academics for real problem solving and troubleshooting. And really, from our point of view, at the end of the day, I don't care whether you're a tool and die maker, a QA tech, a machine setup person, or a press setup person. At the end of the day, what I really need is somebody who can work in that particular job classification and be a problem solver, because that's really what's adding value to our bottom line and what is adding value to our product, to our customer.
Glenn, just to follow up on Roy's great points, and I think everybody touched on some of this stuff, I wanted to plug two excellent programs that New Jersey has. One, obviously, very close to you guys, and the Community College Consortium has run a basic skills training program for years with BIA, and excellent program, and manufacturers or anybody can get on-the-job training for their employees in basic entry-level skills. So I know there's some interest in the chat room, and Roy touched upon it, and all of us, I think, sometimes struggle finding the people that can meet basic math, basic communication, basic soft skills. And the community colleges for years have been trained hundreds of thousands of people from tens of thousands of businesses around the state for free with Department of Labor funding, as long as it's on the job and you're paying them while they're getting trained. Great resource, and I would encourage all of you to look into that. And number two, I know we got a couple people on the Zoom right here from NJMEP. NJMEP is fantastic resource on workforce development for anything manufacturing. They are the best at supporting our manufacturers in the state, and know we have some people on the phone. They are great on the apprenticeship side that we touched upon, and a few other things. So just wanted to give a shout out to them. And I know NJMEP is working with our county colleges on these issues. And obviously this collaborative and the manufacturing center is going to be key for that.
Thanks, Chris, for that shout out.
Thank you, Constantine.
Glenn, I'm just going to add and agree with Chris there that in answer to your first question with what I said, you know, some of our experiences, by the same token, in the last year and a half or so, with the commitment of the new money for pre-manufacturing programs at the community college level, we are starting to see somewhat of a turnaround with things like the County of College of Morris Boot Camp for manufacturing. I haven't seen anybody out of their EDIM program yet, which works with juniors and seniors from high school, but it looks like a very good program for pre-engineering. You know, NJIT's programs and NJMEP. So we are starting to see candidates that have more of an undergirding of what basic manufacturing is, and they're not just coming in with somebody we picked because they appear to have good credentials off of Indeed.
That makes sense. Thank you, Roy. And piggybacking on that, both that observation and some of the comments that Chris also alluded to, at what pace does technology influence workforce training and education for your organization? I'll start with you, Roy, and then I'll ask the other panelists.
Well, it's a little bit twofold. In order to make our stamping dies that make our parts for our customers or our overmolds, we use a lot of computer numerical control or computer-driven machinery. So in that aspect, it's changing very quickly. We need people that are very computer literate and capable of learning quickly new programs. Because our machine, unlike some other manufacturing companies, our machine techs are our programmers. We don't have engineers as our programmers. They are doing the programming at the machines. By the same token, we need to, so as I said, CNC, computer literate, capable of learning quickly. On the other side of it, we still, because we need that man at the end of the day to really troubleshoot what's happening out on the machine, which a computer can't do all the time. We still need that traditional craftsman that is the experienced master tool and die maker. So for us, it's kind of some of both. And that's why I've shared with you in our traditional tool and die making apprenticeship, it is a very long program. It is a 4-year program, 8,000 hours, as opposed to like a CNC on-the-job training program that's generally a 1 or a 2-year program plus the on-the-job. I have one candidate right now who's learning a CNC as a CNC mill tech that is registered apprenticeship that County College of Mars is providing for the RTI.
Excellent.
So.
Same question for you, Gloria. At what pace does technology influence workforce training and education for New Jersey Transit?
So I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I know I had mentioned earlier regarding pre-employment testing. However, I think something as simple as the job seeker first starting to apply to the position was a struggle for many individuals who were used to going into a organization and handing in an application, a piece of paper. So I think it was a big learning curve for individuals to learn how to do something as simple as uploading a resume to apply to our positions, because at one point in time, we were completely automated with applying. And for individuals to not become familiar with that or not familiar with that, it was a struggle for them to simply apply to the positions. So I think that the training to teach these students in the universities how to do something simple as that, and ensuring that the resume they are submitting is the resume that really demonstrates the skills that they do have for the position. Many a times when I attend info sessions and job fairs, I try to educate the college students and say, if you're sending the same resume over and over to different positions, and you're not hearing anything, you might want to take a look at that resume, and you really shouldn't be using that resume for the same, for different positions, because every position is a little bit different. So I try to educate them to tailor that resume. And sometimes you might have 3 different resumes for the position based on, the skill set that is being asked for that position. I have my counterpartner here who was able to show up, Kristen Rocco, and she is the senior director for our talent acquisition area. So Kristen, if you don't mind chiming in a little bit with your experience since you're working in the talent acquisition unit.
Sure. Thank you, Gloria. Appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for allowing me to attend. What we're seeing from a technology standpoint is to ensure that as you're implementing it, that it is able to integrate with mobile devices. That's like key. And iPads and, kind of your smaller versus regular than PC and laptops and desktops. Today, pretty much everyone has a mobile device for the most part. So integrating it with Androids, iPhones, making it very simple to be able to do it from your mobile device and very quickly, I think is key. So that is something that we are actually looking at implementing, particularly in for our background check portal. We now offer online pre-employment testing as well. We usually do mention for pre-employment testing specifically that it's done on a laptop, but for those, we usually have our applicants come in, and if they don't have the ability to have a laptop or some source of computer at home, then we are able to have them come in and do it. But I will say the biggest area is ensuring that whatever the process is for the applicant, that it's very simple, quick, and it's integrated with the mobile devices. Those are the things that we're seeing that will make it a lot easier for people to apply.
Thank you, Kristen. And I appreciate the point that both you and Gloria made around the transition from the paper process to now online and virtual process, because I can distinctly remember the days when New Jersey Transit only took paper applications, and I remember that shift starting probably pre-pandemic. I'm not sure if I know it's probably all that.
Yeah, the pandemic forced the organization, which was kind of a positive. It forced the organization to kind of get into the, I would say, 19th century. So now we're kind of focused on getting into the 20th and 21st century. So we're kind of doing it in steps.
Sure.
But it was good that it forced the organization to get to that part from a technology standpoint. And that is an area that all of our human resources department in all of the functions, that's our biggest focus right now, is the technology side of it.
Thank you, Kristen.
You're welcome.
So, Jim, same question for you. Has that impacted Zero Surge in terms of technology and workforce education training?
Yeah, I would say, and I'm also speaking for, I have a lot of friends that run even bigger manufacturing plants that we have like a weekly or monthly brunch kind of thing that we do. So I get to bring some of their stuff to the table here. But I think part of the problem is you have at the low skill end, like with Roy's stuff is more, I would call the mid to higher skill sets for what, there's crafting product and there's assembling product. We're more of an assembler. So we don't need the high skill, but what we're competing with is automation. So as a job that I had 10 years ago doing by a human, there's no reason I should have by a human today, because like I can get a wire stripper to strip wire. I don't need a human to do that, and for the cost of a wire stripper, it pays itself up in the first year. So that always has been an issue. But then now we're also competing against Amazon. So for the low skill wage, the entry level person, so they look at it and go, I could work for Amazon and I know Amazon only wants me for 3 years. They'll tell you that they don't want you there after 5 years, because they don't want to have to promote you. They don't want to. And I've been to sessions where they said that to us as an audience, right? And so what happens is you have this millennial mindset of, I'm only going to work for a company for 3 years and bump up to the next company and bump up to the next company. Then you have the low end person coming in who has no skills, who we could use, we could train. We have all these great programs, but then they go, I don't want to put the commitment in, because in 3 years, I'm going to go to another company anyway. And then they could just work for Amazon and not have the pressure of having to learn anything. So we fight that. I think I see that with, especially a couple of my friends that are really growing even more than we are. And he's having a problem hiring. He has 10 openings, but he can't find them because A, we're in Hunterdon County, so it's a little hard to commute out here in the country, but B, mostly because Amazon is taking jobs away from them. So we kind of hit it from both sides, technology, but also from the business kind of, supply and demand of jobs.
Great observation. Thank you for that. Hilary, you don't work directly with employees, but what are you hearing from your employers that are part of the ports? Are they indicating any impact of technology influencing their workforce training?
Thanks, Glenn. So yeah, if I could just come at it from that big picture perspective for the port. And I want to start by saying, if we aren't careful, technology definitely can outpace our workforce. And what most people, I would say, don't realize is that the port is landlocked. So we actually have to look for innovative ways to handle increased cargo volumes. Our footprint isn't changing, but we need to evolve in order to handle the greater demands. So recognizing this, our terminal operators leverage technology to create efficiency. And some examples are automated gates, cargo visibility systems, even in training, like they use crane simulators for training people on the Neo-Panamax cranes. And at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, we've actually developed a comprehensive and flexible roadmap that charts the course of the future and development for the port. And this 30-year plan looks holistically at the port, including the container terminals, our auto processing facilities, our dry and liquid bulk container operations, our cargo cruise, ferry landings. And so we're mapping out the next generation of land use and infrastructure development projects. And that will help the port remain, a leading maritime gateway. Often government agencies can be reactive, but the Port Authority's proactive approach examines 5 guiding principles. One is ensuring sustainability and resiliency in all operations and future developments. Another is promoting regional economic generation. Also establishing state-of-the-art facilities with an eye towards next-gen technology, providing a platform for partnership for all of our local stakeholders. I mean, you have to remember that the port is not contiguous. We're located in several different municipalities. And overall, just shaping the growth of the region. And our workforce needs will match this evolution because we're planning for it.
And that leads to a great question for everyone, because I think Hilary's points, those 5 pillars are great for all of us to think about, because Port Authority has definitely been very proactive in developing a long-term plan for the viability and growth, and which include a number of different opportunities for New Jersey residents. So the next question I'd like to ask to the panel is, what are some of those specific credentials that your organization seeks that makes applicants more valuable to your organization? And I'll pose that first to you, Jim, with Zero Surge.
I think for us, like I said, we do focus more on the lower skills, so we don't. Credentials is not as big of an issue for us specifically, but I know for the other companies that I do work with and deal with, the NIM certification is always mentioned as something that they look for. Any certification almost at this point. It's like the fact that they went to a program and tried to learn something. The employer will do the research and figure out, oh, is that credential worth something to us? I think we're almost at that stage where some of my friends are so desperate for employees, they'll take, any certification as long as it's, some kind of legitimate one, they'll work with it. So I think that's part of where, but I know that, we keep trying to work with like NJPTCO to get these programs going. So I know that there's been success and it's exciting to see. I mean, I've been doing this for like 5 years. So, I've seen the growth of it being from an idea to a prototype to, an actual program. So it's kind of exciting. And we are seeing like North Hunterdon is creating a welding program. So that was another skill set that, based on local input from other companies, that was a program that was in need. So they're
Fantastic.
actually doing that at the high school level.
Awesome, awesome. Gloria, what about yourself? What about New Jersey Transit?
So to me, it's more, or to New Jersey Transit, it's more, I think is having these graduates or these recent graduates understanding the industry that they're going into. It's definitely on my end with transit, unless you are in a management type role, and it is not a 9-to-5 type of organization. You know, understanding that because we are transportation, regardless of the weather, you need, right, Hilary, you're laughing because it's true. You're expected to be there. The pandemic affected some of us with regards to where we were working. However, there were some positions that they went right back to work as if it wasn't even there. And just understanding that, again, not to repeat myself, but it is definitely a unique type of industry, and having these recent students realize that you have to start somewhere and then eventually work your way up into, you know, if it's what they want, sitting behind a desk. But until they get to that point and learning the skill sets in different areas of the organization, if you're coming in on the rail side, there's so many avenues that you can learn on the rail side, on the bus side, on the light rail side. So understanding that you do have to start somewhere, and you know, you do have to put more in than maybe what you're used to. So I think the recent grads need to realize what type of career they're going into, because I feel that coming to New Jersey Transit is really a career. It is not simply just a job they're going into. You know, again, Kristen, if you want to piggyback or add anything different.
I agree with Gloria. One of the things, at least I've been seeing during the pandemic, is, you know, we've definitely suffered with certain positions and from a hard skill perspective. So we started focusing on, in some areas, even on the lower skilled workers, more on the soft skills and assessing on the soft skill, where to focus on what are some of the main characteristic traits for certain jobs that a person needs to have to be more successful. So that's been a big focus, particularly in our locomotive program and our conductor program, as well as our entry-level surface transit positions. Certain positions, very little requirements or skill is needed. So the focus is really mainly going to be on that individual. You know, how disciplined is that person? You know, how much attention to detail does that particular person have? Is that person a problem solver? Is that person reliable? So those are the areas that I think we have to kind of gear a little bit more to, and in turn, focus on hiring trainers or instructors, or training our internal employees to train new hires that come in with less experience. There needs to be a little bit more of the open mind on that. And sometimes it can be a challenge, especially when you're dealing with collective bargaining agreements. So it can take a little bit of time, but that's the focus I think we're shifting towards on lower skilled positions in surface transit and our rail.
Thank you, Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Roy? Are there certain credentials or certifications that are more valuable to WYSOG?
Yeah, as I said earlier, what's been happening on the community college level that you and I have been working on prior to your new position, you know, these pre-manufacturing boot camps for apprentices and for manufacturing, and, you know, for the other fields that are not totally related to WYSOG, like electronics, and, you know, having those pre-seminars of 10 or 12 weeks, again, as Jim said, is telling me, okay, you know, they've had some odd jobs, they did these seminars, they did well in them. So it tells me they've got an aptitude to learn, which is a big plus because that means they're teachable. And I'll invest in somebody like that, even if they test low on a basic skills test assessment. You know, if I see that they appear to be teachable and detail oriented, and they have a propensity for the technical side of things, depending upon how that person interviews, I may give them a chance. Obviously, people who have 2 years associate's degrees in engineering or manufacturing, but decide they don't want to go all the way to a 4-year degree at this point in their career is obviously a big plus. And in fact, one of those candidates right now I referred to before, because of COVID, he actually pulled out of an engineering program because he was just tired of the learning style all being remote and decided at this point in his career he wanted to reassess. So he did the CCM boot camp and he came to us through CCM. We've had him for 7 months now and he's been an absolute win. So now somebody like that had a lot more of the technical behind him. I know Jim is talking about a lower level, even though I'm looking for entry-level positions, seeing some type of credential, as I said, that shows that the person is capable of learning at a higher level and could complete something is a plus.
So Jackie put a question in the chat around certain credentials such as Ocean 10 or Ocean 30, if something like that would be something that each of you would look at and say, hey, does that show that they're demonstrating some propensity towards going into a successful career?
The Ocean 10 or I'm sorry, Jim.
I'm just saying, I think she was addressing the thing about the welding specifically, which okay. OSHA. So I'll try to look it up. I can't remember off the top of my head with what they were, because we did have like a couple meetings about all this, but I think they settled on welding and also advanced manufacturing. And I could hook her up with I'll put my email in the chat and they could, it's the Hunterdon County VOTEC that's running this program. But it's going to start freshman year through high school. You graduate high school with a welding or advanced manufacturing certificate. So even before, 18 years old, you're ready to go work. That's the goal.
On a broader answer.
Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Roy.
On a broader answer to that, Jim. And Glenn, a lot of the community college programs are now incorporating, a NIMS basic 10 safety component in whatever program they're teaching. And again, that's a plus because that tells me that I don't have to stand over them every minute of the day till they prove to me they're safe. Like, obviously any new skill I'm teaching, I would, but it tells me again, they've had some of those basic things, which are the same safety courses I provide in the formal training through Tooling U for the RTI that we do right here at the company. I hope that answered people's questions a little broader.
Yeah, Glenn, I just wanted to jump in after this because we're hearing about great programs that the county VOTECs, the high school level, are doing. We're hearing, obviously, we're here today. We know the county colleges are doing fantastic work in this. We heard from a trade union this morning. Obviously, I mentioned MEP. A lot of this, we heard the word this morning was repeated, is coalitions. And I think one of the underlying principles behind the Pathways program is this coalition between BIA and the county colleges, but then it's all of the training providers and education providers around the state, all of the industries and industry partners around the state. And even Jim, I think it's a great example of meeting regularly with the other manufacturers to talk about what the needs are. That's coalitions. And that's what's going to make this work. That's what's going to make pathways stick where we haven't stuck before, in terms of we're sharing best practices. We're all on the same page. We're not competing with each other, because we know that everybody's got an important piece to play in this workforce development pipeline. And I did want to give a shout out. One of the important pieces, we're talking about government, obviously the Port Authority, NJ Transit, but we have one of the co-chairs of the Manufacturing Caucus in the legislature, Senator Mike Testa, is joining us. And again, that's an important part to play in this. The legislature is responsible for getting the money to fund this Pathways program in this year's budget. And Senator Testa is a great advocate. He was on live before. He's now off video, so I don't know if he's listening or not. But Senator Testa, thank you for joining us. But important part of that coalition is the legislature and the advocates in the legislature, like Mike Testa. So, Senator,
I'm listening. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being here as well.
Wouldn't miss it. I mean, I love the comments that I've heard thus far. I truly believe that a monster economic recovery can happen through manufacturing and its partnerships with our community colleges. I know that's been, some of the topic. So, I'm here to learn. I'm here to provide any commentary that's necessary. Chris, I really appreciate you mentioning me. Obviously, I was paying attention. I have to admit, I was looking at some other documents at the time you mentioned it, but
That's allowed.
But no, this is a phenomenal forum, and I think if we all keep our eyes looking forward as to coming up with common sense ways to recovery, both from the COVID-19 era and obviously the economic impact of COVID-19, the supply chain issues that we're having. I think we need to take that 30,000-foot view of these issues, and we can really move forward. And I've said this from the beginning, even before the COVID-19 era. I mean, I was elected in 2019. Unfortunately, I took office in December of 2019, and 3 months later, COVID hit. But I said that New Jersey has to stop focusing so much on our youth going to four-year colleges because of the enormous amount of debt that will be undertaken by them through four-year colleges, and obviously through what I've learned from NJMEP, that the average manufacturing job in the state of New Jersey with overtime is approximately $94,000. And to kids in my area that maybe they would be the first person to go to college from their family, but when they hear of that number, that daunting four-year degree, they realize maybe that's not necessarily the pathway for them. That a one-year certificate or a two-year associate's degree in a pathway into manufacturing to a really well-paying job seems much more attainable to them. So I don't know if anybody wants me to have any more commentary on that, but I've been saying that from the very beginning, and I think that's become even more true due to the COVID-19 era.
Well, I think real quick, Senator, one thing is access to the kids. Our problem is in my kids' high school, I get one opportunity a year to explain manufacturing. They have a career fair one day a year for the sophomores. That's it at North Hunterdon. Whereas all throughout the year, you have colleges coming in, colleges recruiting, colleges giving this, free, tours and paraphernalia and sports and all this stuff to attract the parents of these kids. There's no manufacturing coming in, recruiting at the high school level for, hey, and I think I've talked to counselors and they're like, we can't do it because our jobs require us to have the colleges there. We're scored based on how well our kids graduate and go to college. We're not scored on whether our kids make money, only that their education continues. And so that's where I think we have all these programs and we have all this stuff and we're ready to go, but we're going to find out that there's nobody waiting on the other end for these programs because the parents are all blinded to this college stuff.
Well, and Jim, it's up to us to change the paradigm, right? I mean, it's we have to change the paradigm. I can tell you from the parents that I've spoken to, and I'm proud to be the co-chair of the Manufacturing Caucus. They had no clue that their children can make that level of income with potentially an associate's degree and going into manufacturing. And look, my area of Southern New Jersey is excuse me, is heavy and historic, creating glass. So what they think of when they think of manufacturing is someone at the end of the line, packing the glass or someone blowing the glass. And they really don't necessarily realize the other world outside of just that just that manufacturing, that level of manufacturing, and also, how much someone can make if they do become a high-end glass blower for one of the scientific glass companies, right in our own backyard. But they also don't necessarily see, as you've stated, Jim, that there are so many other opportunities. And as I've said before, look, there's a reason that the bridge in Trenton says Trenton makes and the world takes. We need to make that more true than ever, because of the COVID-19 era. Look, I'm excited about it. Look, look, we're identifying real problems here, Jim. So again, it's up to us to try to change that paradigm. And I think it can be easily done but we do need to remove that stigma of, every child has parents that say, I want my kid to go to college. I want my child to go to a 4-year college. And in reality, with the level of debt that many are seeing, they're saying, this might not really be the right pathway for their children anymore. It's not necessarily an attainable goal. And I can tell you for my area of Southern New Jersey, when I speak to parents and their children regularly, for the children, they're just saying, hey, look, a 4-year degree doesn't really make much sense for me. I want to go make money. And that's a very sad testament, what you said, Jim, about how those counselors are saying we don't get to track what their income is, or that they're employed. That's something that is very troublesome to me. I mean, we need to have a viable workforce here in the state of New Jersey. And I know, especially in my area of New Jersey, we suffer from a horrific brain drain. We get our kids educated or trained in a trade, and they realize, hey, look, New Jersey's very expensive. I don't necessarily think it's a good idea for me to stay here, and they leave. And they leave for a greener pasture, which is someplace with a much lower cost of living, where they can make the same level of income. So I look, we're at least identifying the problems. It is up to us and groups like us to come out of this with solutions. So I can understand your frustration. I share in it.
And Senator Testa, just because somebody doesn't go to college at 18 doesn't mean they're not going to go 24. And as Dean Howell mentioned in the chat, it's a PR issue. It's trying to let people know that the trades are out there and that you can get the equivalent of a 2 or 4 year degree with an apprenticeship, with the structured training programs in advanced manufacturing.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Senator Testa. We're going to be pulled back into the main room in about 30 seconds. So I didn't want to catch anybody off guard, but I want to thank all of my panelists here who joined us today, and Senator Testa for joining, and Christopher, my co-facilitator. This was a wonderful conversation. We didn't get through all the questions, and I apologize for those who had questions in the chat that we weren't able to address, but we encourage you all to participate in our collaboratives. This is going to continue. This is a much needed and timely initiative. And thank you, Senator Testa, for being behind the manufacturing sector. Okay, we're being asked to leave. So
yeah, the great thing about today is the beginning, not the end. So we look forward to working with you all on this as we go.
Let's move the needle, everyone. Let's move the needle for our next generation.